If you or someone you love ever ends up having to take part in a clinical trial right now, there is no real way of knowing if that drug is going to work for you before you take it. All you do is show up, you meet the criteria, and you hope for the best. That's kind of it. But there is technology that is starting to change, and it's something known as a digital patient twin. And the whole idea is that before you ever take a drug, a model built from your own health data could predict how your body would react or respond to that drug before you took it. So today, I want to break down what that actually means and why I think every patient should know about it. So let's start with the problem because you can't really appreciate a solution if you don't have a good understanding of how broken the current system is. Right now, developing a new drug takes an average of 10 to 15 years, and it costs anywhere from $1 to $2 billion. And after all that time and money, over 90% of these drugs will not work. And here's what really gets me. First of all, as a nurse, okay, there is a huge reason why these drugs fail. And it's not because we're not good at predicting which types of patients will actually respond to a treatment, but it's because we enroll people into a clinical trial based on a relatively broad criteria. If you meet the age range, if you have the diagnosis, if your labs fall within a certain window, then you're in. But every single body is different. Your genetics are different. Your medical history is different. The way that your liver metabolizes a compound is different from another person that is sitting right next to you in that same clinical trial. So, what happens is some patients respond beautifully, and others have what we know as adverse reactions that nobody saw coming. And other patients just don't respond at all. And so the drug looks like it's failed, but maybe it only failed because we gave it to the wrong group of patients. And this is not a data problem or an operations problem, it's a human problem. And I know this because as a nurse, I've watched patients go through the physical and emotional toll of signing up for a trial and having all this hope. And ultimately, it doesn't work. They give up their time, their bodies, their hope, and the system essentially treats it like a coin flip. And that's because that's what it is. But there has got to be a better way to do this. And that's where digital patient twins come in. Think of it like this. Before a car is sold, a car manufacturer has to do what is called a test crash with a dummy inside. They simulate this crash digitally thousands of times. They can model the physics, they can model and observe the materials, the angles, they can figure out what's going to happen before anything physically takes place or before that car actually gets on the road. A digital patient twin does the same thing, which is model how your body will react, but this time to a drug or a medical device or something that you are about to do, like a certain type of diet or exercise. And how that works is it creates a computational model from information that is in your health data. So things like your medical history, your biomarkers, your genetic profile, and even your lifestyle factors. And then it builds a simulation of how your body would likely respond to a specific treatment. So, in the case of clinical trials, instead of enrolling you into a trial and hoping for the best, the researchers can run this experiment on your digital twin first. They would be able to see, does this patient simulated biology respond to this compound? Do they show any signs of toxicity? Is this patient even right to take part in this trial? Now, I want to be clear that this is not about replacing a real clinical trial because we still need to test drugs on real humans. That's the only way that we can get new drugs that work so well. What this does is it removes the need for us to put humans into studies that are probably not beneficial for them and then crash their hopes. So, does this actually work in practice? And I'll keep the answer this simple because I think the concept matters more than the technological details. There are basically three layers of how this works on a practical level. The first layer is the data layer. That is everything we know about a patient. It comes from your electronic health records, It comes from your lab result. It comes from any sort of imaging or scans that you've done. It comes from your genomic data if you've done 23andMe or Ancestry, and it comes from your demographic data as well. So the richer and more diverse this data is, the better the model performs. The second layer is the modeling layer, and this is where machine learning and biological modeling come together to create this really beautiful simulation. Because the system learns patterns from thousands or even millions of patient records. It can see which kind of patient profiles respond to which types of treatments. It can see which ones experience side effects. It can also see the patient profiles that sort of drop out and not really take part in clinical trials. And then it uses these patterns to build this individualized prediction machine. And based off of that simulation layer, we go into the third layer, which is the output layer. The model then generates a simulated response for that specific patient. Will they likely respond? What is the probability of an adverse event? Is there a different trial that the patient will be better suited to as opposed to taking part in a specific trial that they're getting enrolled into? When this is well done, what you're essentially given to like researchers is a preview of a trial before it happens. And so the researcher is able to better match patients. They're able to reduce any sort of adverse events that patients would have taken part in. They're able to run these studies quicker. And ultimately, they're able to make drugs that come to sick patients at a faster rate. But here's a part of the equation that I think this solves really heavily for, which is the fact that clinical trials have a massive diversity problem. Majority of people that take part in clinical trials have been men in Western countries. And so that means that we're all surviving on drugs that are approved and optimized for a very narrow slice of the population. And so we see a lot of communities in like Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America that, we're not involved in clinical trials, but then we all just take the same drugs and hope that it works best. But it's important that we understand how a drug behaves across different genetic backgrounds, different environments, different healthcare contexts without requiring every single one of those patients or every single person on earth to sit in a physical hospital or location that may not exist near them. And now, yeah, the technology is still pretty early, and these models are only as good as the data we feed them. And so, if the data has gaps, then there will be biases and it will not be able to predict or simulate as well. Also, the science of simulating human biology is incredibly complex, and we're not going to get it perfect overnight. The human body is one of the most complex machines in existence. But I genuinely believe that this is one of the most promising directions in how we test new medication, in how we treat our loved ones who are dependent on these clinical trials. And for anybody who is interested in like medicine or just making sure that we get more drugs that improve our lives on earth and improve our lifespan, this is definitely something that you should be looking into. With that said, would you trust a digital version of yourself to be tested on before you? I'm curious. And if you want me to go deeper on any part of what I've just said, the science, the ethics about it, the issues of global health implications, then let me know and I can make more videos. I'll see you in the next one.